Hello, I'm Craig Crowley. I'm 50-something. I've been involved in sport since I was young. I played football, rugby, cricket at school, county, club and international level. I'm a Deaf Olympian. I won a silver medal with the GB Deaf football team in the Deaflympics Games in Los Angeles in 1985. But my journey in life has been far from easy. It's had its challenges. This is my life story. Okay, so I was born on the 14th of April 1964 in Morpeth, Northumberland. But I grew up here in Cramlington. My father's name is Mick and my mother's name is Christine. I also have a younger sister, Jennifer, and she was married in the church just behind me. I have other relatives, uncles, aunts, all of who live in and around Cramlington. I love Northumberland. It's my favourite place, especially here. The coastline, it's gorgeous. Growing up, my parents often brought me here to the beach to meet friends and family. I left home at 18, but over the years, I still come back here. And whenever I visit with my family, I come back here with my own family. I'm off now to meet my parents. There'll be an interpreter there because I'll be signing. Hello. I've been meaning to ask you this for a long time. But anyway, when I was little, as parents, how did you cope with having a deaf child?
Well, it was a bit of a shock to start with, because you were 3 when we found out you were deaf. You had one big advantage, is that you were good at sport from 5 or 6, and that helped you integrate with hearing people.
That's interesting. Did either of you recognise that sporting potential?
Yes, I think we did, didn't we?
Yes, he was very good at football. In fact, you were in the school team, the only deaf child in a hearing team from about the age of 9 or 10. Where did they play, ma'am?
You played in a field outside Blythe Spartans football ground.
Yes, you're right. That was Princess Louise Middle School. I was so proud playing matches next to the ground of a semi-professional team. Yes, that's right. And then did he also recognise my potential for leadership in sport? Which did he notice first, do you think?
Sport was the obvious one, and a lot of influence from a teacher, Wilson Taylor.
That's right.
But no leadership potential. That was picked up later on.
So that would mean that leadership came later on, and it was Morag who recognised that. Isn't that right?
Well, you moved south when you were 18 and joined FYD, and a wonderful woman, Morag Rosie, she saw the leadership potential.
Yeah.
You've been away for 2/3 of your life, and as a result of Morag's influence, possibly, you've got an MBE, you were the chair of the Deaflympics, and lots of other things that we didn't see the potential for.
Yes, I suppose when you weigh it up, that's right. But I really want to thank you for my upbringing. And after that, things developed from there. So if you put those things together, it worked out well in the end. Am I right?
We're very proud of what you've done.
Very proud.
Thank you, Mum.
Well done.
Thank you, Dad. This next part of my story is very special. I grew up in a hearing family. The first time I got involved with the FYD, that's Friends of the Young Deaf, I was 17 at Millfield School in Somerset. It was at school that I first met Morag Rosie. She was the first deaf adult that I'd ever met. I lived with Morag and her family in the house behind us. And wow, she taught me a lot. So now I'm going to see Morag, who lives in Sussex, and I'm meeting her at the old office and headquarters of the FYD. Hello, Morag. I still remember when I was young, all those years ago, how we met. What do you think of me at the time?
My first reaction, when I saw you, I was looking for the right person, someone who was ready to take over as youth leader. So we talked, and you said, "Oh yes, I want to help young deaf people."
That's right.
Then I had to think about how to find the money to cover your time for 2 years. When you arrived, you were a little bewildered to discover we had 44 projects on the go and that the office was empty except for 2 of us.
Yes, 44 projects, I remember. Incredible, really. Communication through Sport project. There was a series of those, and it also gave me the opportunity to take on the responsibility for the leadership training alongside a teacher for the deaf, who was hearing. That was my first real experience of something like that. Do you remember that?
Yes, and then over time we extended the training to incorporate 3 different levels of leadership to cater for those who wanted to go on and learn more.
And those different levels of leadership proved really useful to me later on. When suddenly you had a problem with the trustees and you were the director, when I learned about that, I had to intervene and sort it out. Really, that was my first real taste of politics. And I learned that back when I was young. And at the same time, I thought I want to learn more, so I moved on because I've been part of things here. So I went on to full-time education. I do think it was the right time, but it was an incredible 3 years.
At the same time, you were with us a short time, and then, after that, you were elected president of the Students' Union. But you still kept coming back to FYD of your own accord, whenever you were needed.
I think if I try to summarise that, I feel like I achieved so much in such a short period of time. But also, incredibly, you being the first deaf adult that I'd ever met, and you were the director of the FYD, that really inspired me. You broke through the glass ceiling in terms of leadership. That's the example you set for me, and I feel genuinely honoured to have been part of that experience.
And from my perspective, it was wonderful for me to see you go on from there and be awarded the MBE, a Lifetime Achievement Award. And what more? My goodness.
Thank you, Morag. Over the years, growing up in education, I never really fitted in. But here at Reading University, I finally found my deaf identity. I also learned a huge amount here about politics. And that was eventually how I became the first profoundly deaf person in the UK to be elected President of the Student Union. I'm now going to meet with Ken Carter, together with an interpreter. Ken back then was principal lecturer, tutor, and my mentor back when I was a student. He now works for Deaflympics, a charity here at Reading University.
Great, Craig, brilliant. Great. Oh, lovely. Yeah. Go to come and sit. Yeah.
It's incredible to be back here at Reading University after all this time. But can I ask you, explain to me, what was I like when I was a student here at Bulmersh?
Well, I knew you before when you worked for FYD, so that was very important because you were running leadership courses, communication courses, and it gave you that experience and confidence which was needed when you came onto the course. So you were well prepared.
That would mean I was on the Youth and Community Studies course. That's right. I was thinking what to do next, so I decided to go for Student Union President. I remember asking your advice. Do you remember that?
I do.
Can you tell me what happened?
When you came into my room and you said, "What do you think about me being the president of the Students' Union?" I went, "Well, you can't be any worse than the ones that have gone before, but watch your back because you'll have knives in it in 6 months' time."
That's right. I remember that advice so clearly. And it taught me because I then started to get a feel of what politics is like and what democracy is like. Do you think that experience of politics and democracy was something I then used in deaf sport later on in my life?
I think the politics and the communication skills, experience, all those things helped with your development in deaf sport. You were good before you came, but you improved because of the confidence.
I absorbed all of that. That's right. Thank you. Great memories.
Anyway, thank you very much indeed. It's been a pleasure. A pleasure. And congratulations
Thank you.
to you.
Right, I'm back now in the area where I live. And I'm here with my family. Next to me is my wife, Claire. And over here we have my children. Nearest to me, daughter, Katie, who was 26 and from a previous relationship. Next to her is my daughter, Millie, who was 17. And my son, Aaron, who was 13. And we're here to have a chat. Let's start with Aaron. I remember you telling me about a project you did at school when you were younger about the Olympics. What was that?
So when I was in primary school, we had to do something, like draw something to do with the Olympics, and I drew you because you were president of the Deaflympics at the time. And my teacher didn't know what the Deaflympics was, so I was explaining. And then you came into my school and talked to my classmates and teachers about what it was.
I do remember going into your school and I gave a presentation which was delivered in sign. And you helped with the communication by voicing me. But that's right, they didn't know about the Deaflympics, so I had to explain that we have one, like the Paralympics and the Olympics, didn't I? Wow, that's a fantastic story. I remember it well. And that brings to mind something at Buckingham Palace. Something funny happened. What was that?
I remember that day very, very well. Millie was 5, I was 14, and that day, taken off into a room, told what you need to do when you meet the Queen. We were waiting. Millie was fidgeting because she's very little at the time. We waited, then we see you come in the room, and before you meet the Queen, you have to bow, then meet the Queen. But you forgot, remember, you forgot.
Yes.
And you went straight up to the Queen, and the interpreter was with you. Went to bow, realised that you were gone. Went straight up to the Queen. And then at the end you came back and bowed and then left. But I remember that was so funny. But it was good because you got the medal.
Well, thankfully. I was worried she wouldn't give the medal if I didn't bow first. Do you remember
Good
that?
job we didn't shake her hand.
Yes, you're right, thank goodness. It was funny though. And linked to that, what's this about me having a strange laugh?
You laugh like a machine gun all the time, and you like to say your jokes quite funny, but only you laugh at them, so not really funny.
But you can always tell where you are because we hear you first.
One thing that sticks in my mind that was special was the night that we were all together at the Signature Awards as a family. Was what happened a nice surprise for you all?
Yeah, we had to dress up really nice, posh clothes, makeup, bow tie for the first time, and go to Gateshead, the bridges, to the Baltic, the art gallery, and it was a really posh event. It was really good.
Black tie.
Yeah.
Was it a surprise for you at the end?
Yeah.
It was lovely.
Yeah. I was really proud of when you got the award because I didn't know that you did all of the stuff that it said you did.
And everybody was so proud and standing up, clapping. Well,
From a young age, I've been passionate about sport. And now I enjoy it as a spectator. For me, the best place in the world is right here in Newcastle. Home to my two favourite teams, Newcastle United Football Club and Newcastle Falcons Rugby Club, where today they've generously offered me the chance here at the stadium to meet the players and the coach.
How are you? Me too. Yeah, great to meet you. How are you getting on? I didn't have any
My current role is Chief Executive of Action Deafness. And one of the offices is here at Loughborough University. My passion is still deaf leadership in sport. I have experience in the role of President of the International Committee of Sport for the Deaf, the ICSD, Deaflympics, for 4 years, 2009 to 2013. That was a really difficult experience, dealing with the cancellation of 3 games, all in succession. That was really difficult. Today, I'm meeting up with Stuart Harrison. Over the years, our paths have crossed numerous times during our journeys growing up. I'm meeting with him today to talk about deaf sport. Well, I was part of the GB deaf football team in Los Angeles World Games for the deaf, and I noticed that half of the deaf athletes in the team went through the FYD project. Is that right?
I was amazed to find that out. How all of them went through the coaching program for tennis and swimming, a host of other sports, and that's where, for many of us, our coaching and teaching careers started.
And that carried right through to me ultimately being elected as President of the International Committee of Sport for the Deaf, the ICSD, the Deaflympics in Taipei in 2009. But that 4-year term was challenging, very challenging. There were some good times, but there were also some not so good times as well.
That's right.
And also, I had to get through the very difficult task of having to work my way through the cancellation of 3 of the games. I mean...
That was completely unheard of before. Certainly not at our level.
It was astonishing. Wow. And at the same time, I thought to myself, how am I going to manage to get through 4 years and somehow save the reputation of the Deaflympics? But I was very resilient, as were the board. It was such a hard time, those 4 years. I couldn't believe it.
It meant that you couldn't finish what you actually started, and you had to make sure of the relationship with the IOC and the IPC.
You're right on that side of things. I built up very carefully diplomatic relations with the Olympics and the Paralympic Committee. It took me those 4 years to gain their trust and confidence in the Deaflympics and repair the reputation, really. But moving on from that, we now have unfinished business in our current rules. Isn't that right?
You're honorary president and I'm the vice president of UK Deaf Sport, so yes, we all still have work to do. And the one thing we want to do is to get the British government's recognition of GB Deaf Sports.
You're absolutely right. We have to get that recognition. Secondly, as well as the international political level, the Deaflympics, the ICSD, need to work closely together with the Paralympics, collaboratively, because the Olympics want to see that going through. And that hasn't happened yet, and it needs to happen.
Well, you and I have to get on with it.
Definitely. I've had a full life. It's been amazing. Great. I've met so many people on my journey, and I want to thank all of them for all of their involvement along the way. And now I'm going to do the same in helping others. I've achieved a lot. I have some sporting qualifications. I was awarded the MBE, and I've been president of the ICSD. I've been chair of UK Deaf Sport, and now they've made me honorary president. I've been given a Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, I'm 50-something. Not really. I'm 55. And I'm not done yet. Not by any means. There's more to come. I still have a vision for deaf leadership and deaf sport. I'm also going to keep lobbying the government to officially recognise the Deaflympics and deaf athletes. To those of you who say we can't, we deaf can.